Hey everyone, it's Fuchsia here, and I'm finally back with a big refocusing of this channel. I've kind of hinted at it in the last couple moving vlogs that it's going to be more lifestyle focused, or lifestyle, I guess is the catch-all term for it. But I've been wanting to change its focus for a while. Well, really, I wanted to focus on reviewing witchcraft books, but then I got a job at a witchcraft publishing company, and I thought it would be a conflict of interest. And then that job kind of really sucked, so I don't really want to touch the subject altogether right now. So I decided to start reviewing fiction books on here, because I do read a lot of that. And I just haven't had the time to start with my move and school and all. Well, since moving, I've started to work at a library, so while I haven't made any videos about my recent reads, I've been doing a lot of reading and have a lot to catch up on. I'm just going to highlight my favorites of the past few months, but I'll point out that you can keep current with all my reads and reviews on both my Goodreads and Storygraph profiles linked below. Most of these and most of the books I'll review here in general are fantasy, because that's my preferred genre of choice. But it's not all that I read, it just happens to be my favorites from what I'm picking for this video. Also, I don't have a lot of the covers to hold up because they were library books and I've already returned them. Let's start with two books by a new-to-me author, The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I was recommended this author when I asked for queer fantasy, but I didn't know what to expect beyond that. I picked up The House in the Cerulean Sea first at an indie bookstore in Chicago. The store is called Afterwards, and I highly recommend it, but I didn't know what I was getting into. But it turns out that it was a beautiful comfort read, just what I needed. I had just unceremoniously lost a job that was supposed to be amazing, but was full of anxiety, drama, and backstabbing. You know, the one I just mentioned. I was in the middle of losing the battle for Felix's life, and I was about to make a major move while trying very hard not to fall into depression. But the moment I picked up this book, everything was momentarily better. This book is such a comforting read about a group of misfits finding family together. Magical orphans that are secluded on an island due to how dangerous they could potentially be. But they're really just kids and deserve to have innocent childhoods. When a by-the-books caseworker comes to inspect the state-sanctioned orphanage, he learns a lot about what it really means to be alive and care about others. A wonderful, cozy read. I just couldn't put this down and read it in a single day. And speaking of learning what it means to be alive, that's the theme of Under the Whispering Door, another book by T.J. Klune. Through his death, a man learns how to live and love. I read this just a couple weeks after Felix died, and once again had no idea about the premise, just that it was right there on the display shelf on my first day of work at the library, and it was perfect timing and perfect comfort. I've said a lot that I've been surrounded by death my whole life, and while it's not fun, it's definitely something I've gotten used to. I love when a book can handle death in such a beautiful way as this one did. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana is another cozy fantasy read that was great to sink into. Cozy reads. Guess you know what I needed the past few months. Its premise is, on the surface, reminiscent of The House in the Cerulean Sea. A woman becomes involved in caring for three young magical folk who are hidden away and fiercely protected by the caretakers who love them. The details are different. The main character and the children are witches, and it isn't government-sanctioned care, but rather very secret, hence the title. But, like Cerulean Sea, it's a cozy story about found families and love conquering all. I don't rate this book as highly as Cerulean Sea due to a few writing choices, but it's still a fun, warm read. Okay, now let's talk about a series that has taken my fantasy group by storm. Fourth Wing and its sequel, Iron Flame, by Rebecca Yarros. Now, these fall very solidly in the romantasy genre, a fairly new term for books that, you guessed it, combine romance with fantasy. And I generally avoid this genre. My asexual ass isn't a fan of romance and definitely not of spice, but sometimes one piques my interest despite those elements having as much weight to the plot as the fantasy themes. And Fourth Wing did that. I mean, it's about dragons, and the dragons are fantastic, I gotta say. And I love the political environment and intrigue that we see in the first 2 books. That hooked me just as much as the dragons. I gotta say that I find the romance to be both a snooze and frustrating, but again, I am definitely not the target audience for that. But the first half of Iron Flame was painful because of that, but the second half, focused on everything else, made up for it. But also, can I just say, back in 2014 on Tumblr, the big joke in the asexual community was that we were all into dragons, so I'm kind of wondering how we ended up here 10 years later, the most popular book about dragons in many years, being filled with sex scenes that we couldn't care about. Wonder how that happened. Okay, asexual rant over. Also note, I'm not disparaging anyone's into that or romance novels in general, just not my thing. Next on the list is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I worried this one would veer into romantasy, but thankfully it hasn't, at least not yet. Although there is romance, and honestly it's pretty boring. I'm very tired of both love triangles and enemies to lovers tropes, but then again, I'm not the target audience for anything romance. But that's not the focus of this book. Thankfully, and it shines in everything else. It's a modern reincarnation story of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and I love Arthurian legends, so I'm definitely the target audience for that. And it takes the myth and reworks it in a way that makes it incredibly unique, but still recognizable. Bree, a black teenage girl who just lost her mother, is trying to navigate a secret society of Round Table descendants, and the book explores both racism and grief in such visceral ways. Definitely not the most lighthearted of books in this video, but definitely one of the most important. The other contender for most important here is Sir Callie and the Champions of Helston by Esme Symes Smith. A middle grade fantasy novel, it tells the story of Callie, a non-binary child who wants to be a knight. But in the strict gender roles of their society, only boys become knights and girls learn magic. So, how can Callie pursue their dreams when everyone sees them as a girl? Even more, in their adventures, they discover that the magic or fighting binary isn't as clear-cut even with people who do identify with their assigned gender. There are boys who have magic too. It's an important story for juvenile readers to learn about celebrating what makes someone them. Also, as a note, the author is a fan of Tamara Pierce, and I love that they took the question fans have been asking for 40 years, what if Alana was explicitly genderqueer, and turned it into its own story? You can recognize the inspiration, but it is not a carbon copy with gender changed. On the note of my favorite author, this next book slipped under my radar for a long time, but I had to read it once someone described it as George R.R. Martin meets Tamara Pierce. Despite that description, I was completely unprepared for what A Queen in Hiding by Sarah Kozloff contained. Truly an epic high fantasy, it weaves together many character stories to tell a tale of power, betrayal, loss, and hope. It was not at all what I expected in its format or perspective, but I enjoyed every bit of it. As a bonus, there are 4 books in the series, all published, so you won't have to wait for the story's conclusion. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. I had planned on talking about a few more, like Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe, but this is already too long. So check out my written reviews for those. As for what I'm currently reading, and you might see upcoming, The Magicians, Magical Midlife Madness, The Color of Magic, The Witch and the Tsar, and 3 sequels to books I discussed here. We'll see what I get through this month. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful, magical day.